At this point, we have done a couple of portal abuse videos on the channel, and I've got about 1 or 2 more before the start of the 2025 college football season. And contrary to most of the other guys I've covered, this guy's actually been pretty successful everywhere he has been, but he's just jumped around schools a lot. I'm sure a lot of you college football fans remember the name Chandler Morris, as he was a coach that just did not work out at Arkansas and is considered the worst hire of the 2010s. He ended up having a son by the name of Chandler Morris, who, depending on the site, was a 4-star recruit, a legendary player at his Texas high school, and has now played at Oklahoma, TCU, North Texas, and will be at Virginia for the 2025 season. He's on year number 6, and in today's video we're to go through his journey, his backstory, why he has stopped at 4 different schools, and how he could do this upcoming season. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you didn't support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Chandler Morris. So in order to talk about how Morris got to this point, we first need to go back in time. Chandler has been groomed to be an elite quarterback for pretty much his entire life, as he was born in Houston, Texas, just 10 days after his father, Chad Morris, was head coach when Bay City topped Denton Ryan for a Class 4 state title all the way back in the year 2000. Chad Morris later became the head coach at Stephenville and Lake Travis, where he won back-to-back crowns. He transitioned to the college football game as an assistant coach as he made stops at both Tulsa and then Clemson. He would then take the SMU head coaching job in 2015, which would bring Chandler Morris to Highland Park High School. While his dad was slowly rebuilding the SMU football program, he was waiting to take over, but was stuck behind another interesting quarterback in John Stephen Jones. He has some sort of relation to Jerry Jones, and at first he would just have to watch him. In December of 2018, Morris was on the sideline for a 53-49 victory in the Class 5A championship, and he watched as John Stephen Jones had one of the best individual performances in Texas title history. Shortly after the game ended, Morris said, quote, "John told me it was my time. He helped me so much last year, and he kind of took me under his wing." Before ever starting a game, Chandler Morris got offers from schools like Arkansas and Clemson, and he was seen as a blue-chip recruit. But his dad would eventually take the Arkansas job, and he would have a decision to make. Would he stay home, or would he follow him? He would decide to stay at Highland Park, saying, quote, "It was a difficult decision, but I didn't want to leave my coaches. I met the greatest program in Texas high school football, and I have a great relationship with everyone at Highland Park." Eventually, Morris became an incredible player in his 2 years as a starter, as he threw for 7,694 yards and 88 touchdowns. He even had a season in which the team went 16-0 and won a Class 5A state title, and that was all the way back in 2018. He also ran for 1,300 yards and 37 rushing touchdowns, and on some sites he was a 4-star, and on others he was just a 3. Where would he go? Well, it kind of got complicated quickly. He decided to commit to Arkansas because his dad was the head coach there, but then Chad Morris got fired. Obviously, Morris was really struggling while he was in Fayetteville, and he was let go of his job, so he decided to reopen his recruitment. He wanted to play and be coached by his father, but he only went 4-18 while he was there, so it just wasn't going to work. Chandler said, quote, "I mean, it was pretty hectic. It all kind of hit right before the playoffs started for me, and that was tough and a stressful time, but it's been good. It's taught me a lot, and it's molded me." Once he decommitted, his heart was with the Oklahoma Sooners, as Lincoln Riley had extended a scholarship offer a couple of years ago, and he got wind of him because of Kevin Murray, Kyler Murray's dad, who was a private quarterback coach who helped build up big-time quarterbacks in high school. After that, Chandler would visit Virginia Tech, TCU, and USC, but ultimately he decided to commit and sign with the Oklahoma Sooners. He wanted to play for his dad, but the whole Arkansas thing happened, and he said it was a sign from God that it wasn't meant to be, and that there was just a different plan. His dad would eventually take a spot on the Auburn staff, but Oklahoma was just better for him. 24/7 Sports Scouts said, quote, "He's an undersized but athletic quarterback with a terrific pedigree and production. He has a limited frame with lower physical ceiling, displays lightning quick release with consistency, and is a smooth, accurate passer who drops the ball into zone windows, especially outside of the hashes." According to 24/7 Sports, Chandler Morris was a 3-star recruit, the number 18 quarterback, and the 485th best player in the class of 2020. So, how did he end up doing at Oklahoma? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. Obviously, Chandler arrived at an interesting time in the history of college football, as 2020 was probably the worst possible year to be a freshman. He came to Oklahoma and would end up being a backup to Spencer Rattler, but Morris still got a few opportunities to see the field. Also, before I talk anymore, I want to give a quick shout out to MJMPC3 for suggesting today's video, and if you want to be featured in one, be sure to drop which topic or player I should cover next. Now back to the video. Chandler appeared in 3 regular season games, completing 2 passes against Missouri State, and then played a little bit in their game against Iowa State in the Big 12 Championship, and then had 1 pass against Florida. In total, he went 3 of 5 for 39 yards, but ended up having 2 rushing touchdowns with the Sooners. Obviously, they were to continue with Spencer Rattler going into 2021, and Caleb Williams was a part of the 2021 class, so Chandler sort of saw the writing on the wall. He decided to enter the 2021 transfer portal and would pick a fellow Big 12 program in the TCU Horned Frogs. It seemed super simple, as he would go back close to home and hopefully ball out for a team that needed him. Except, at first the transfer was blocked. I think originally the Big 12 did not want players transferring interconference, and they would have to sit out a year if they did so. Oklahoma decided to block it for a little while, but eventually it would all end up working out, as Morris was able to be eligible for the 2021 season. He ended up being the backup to Max Duggan back then, and in total he played in 4 games, but got an opportunity to play ample snaps against both Baylor and Oklahoma State. That Baylor game in particular was amazing, as he threw for 461 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he also had 70 yards and a score on the ground. Morris showed lots and lots of potential in a TCU uniform, but then going into 2022, tragedy would sort of strike. He ended up beating out Max Duggan for the starting job, but after literally just a couple of plays, he would get hurt and was done for the entire season. Morris threw for 111 yards against Colorado, but an injury would sideline him. For TCU though, it didn't really matter, as they would go forward with Max Duggan, win a ton of close games, go to the college football playoff, beat Michigan, and then get skull crushed by Georgia. Morris was good to go by the end of the season, and actually threw a pass in that loss to Georgia in the national championship, but the TCU fans had pretty much forgotten about him at this time. Heading into 2023, Morris would be back and he would end up starting, but again, tragedy would strike. After playing in 6 games, he would once again get hurt, and honestly, he was off to a good start. He threw for over 1,500 yards and 15 combined touchdowns in those first 6 matchups before he was injured and handed the job over to Josh Hoover. His best performance came against SMU, as he had 265 yards and 3 touchdowns without a pick. Morris was obviously plenty talented, but now he had suffered a second straight injury, and Josh Hoover was sort of taking over. Hoover was really good in 2024, and so was Chandler Morris, except it would happen at a new team. Before he had arrived at North Texas, he had said he was burnt out of football and had lost a lot of joy for it. He was hoping to start, sort of gain that love for the game back, and help make an impact on the North Texas football program. Morris, you could say, had an incredible 1 year while he was there. He had over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in his first game against South Alabama, and then led them to a huge win over Stephen F. Austin. He had combined for 9 touchdowns in his first 2 games, and he would just continue to ball out for the remainder of the year. He had over 300 yards against Wyoming, 400 against Tulsa, 300 against Florida Atlantic, 445 against Memphis, and then 449 against Tulane. North Texas had won 5 of their first 6 games, but unfortunately they went on a pretty big losing streak, losing to Tulane, Army, UTSA, and East Carolina before getting a late win over Temple. He had some pretty magical performances and was near the top of college football statistically, as he had thrown for 3,774 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 12 picks, while also rushing for nearly 300 yards and 4 scores on the ground. He had one of the best single seasons in North Texas football history, and is probably up there with the same lore that Mason Fine had. North Texas was obviously trying to keep him back for his final year of eligibility, but they just didn't have the money to do so. Despite making efforts to retain him, Chandler ended up getting a $1.2 million deal to leave, and would eventually decide to choose Virginia over Oklahoma State, UCF, and Memphis. No offense, but out of those 4 schools, I think Virginia is probably the most difficult to win at and the most difficult to have success, whereas a school like Oklahoma State desperately needed a new guy, UCF needed a new guy, and Memphis needed a new guy. I personally don't get it, but again, he probably made the best decision for himself. He ended up finishing 4th nationally with 31 touchdown passes last year, only trailing Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and Cade Klubnik. He also finished number 5 in passing yards a game with 314.5, and he also led them to the number 3 ranked total offense. Virginia's offense finished 105th in scoring, and Anthony Colandrea decided to transfer over to UNLV. Tony Elliott desperately needs to get things going in Virginia and needs to get a bowl game under his belt, so getting a guy like Chandler Morris is huge for them. I'm not really sure what their offense looks like, but it hasn't been very explosive the last couple of years, and I don't necessarily know if it'll change that much. I think Chandler will probably be pretty decent there, but won't exactly break national records. I think he'll just be your average starting quarterback. Hopefully Virginia wins 6 or 7 games, and he finishes out his career on a high note. Chandler Morris is interesting. Some could say he's somewhat of a bust, but at the same time, he was really solid when he actually played, had one of the best seasons in North Texas football history, and still has a story to write. I doubt he will get drafted, but he could end up with an undrafted free agent deal, and if not, he'll probably go into coaching like his dad. We'll just have to wait and see, but despite Chandler Morris being somewhat of a portal abuser, this was a very fun story, and I'll be rooting for him this year at Virginia. But what do you guys think? If you're a fan of any of these schools, what do you think of Chandler Morris? How do you think he will do this year? And which player should I do a feature on next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you're going to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.